Welcome back, America. This is Hugh Hewitt. Let me tell you about police. Let me tell you about Bill Barr. Let me tell you about Donald Trump talking about police. What has quickly become one of two issues that will drive the November election is, what do you think about police? The Democrats want to defund police. They want to prosecute police. The Republicans are in favor of assisting police in doing their duty, securing public safety, protecting you. It is that simple. Bill Barr was on with Bret Baier last night, talking at length about the events of the past 2 weeks. And I want you to hear Bill Barr and Donald Trump talking about police. We begin on the issue of the apparent inconsistency in public health advice for protesters and public health advice for everybody else. Cut number two.
I think given the uncertainty involved and the very fast pace of the infection, especially in certain areas, the original 30-day or so, and even maybe with some extensions, measures were appropriate. But I think that as time has gone by, the degree of impingement on fundamental liberties has never been anything like this in the United States. Nationally, forbidding people from engaging in their livelihood, telling them to stay home is a sort of a form of house arrest in many places.
Have these protests and demonstrations and what we've seen across the country changed that dynamic?
Well, I think it should, because it raises a fundamental question, which is, why should some people who are enjoying their First Amendment rights by going out and protesting have broader rights than other people who may want to exercise their, for example, religious First Amendment rights and go to church, as long as social distancing rules and things like that are complied with.
I got to tell you, Bill Barr is the smartest attorney general we've had on matters constitutional. Well, in my lifetime. I worked for two of them. Ed Meese was very, very good. Bill Smith was a very, very fine manager of the Department of Justice. There is no one remotely close to his stature who has held that job, who has thought as long and as thoroughly about the Constitution in my adult lifetime. I can't think back to when Justice Jackson was Attorney General. He may be the equal of Justice Jackson. He's too old to go on the Supreme Court, but God bless Bill Barr. Meanwhile, he talked about, to Bret Baier, the many steps that Donald Trump has taken on criminal justice reform. Cut number three.
If you pull back the police from these communities, there'll be more harm done to these communities. The president, has been attempting to address the criminal justice reform issue. He did the First Step Act. He set up the first police commission since Lyndon Johnson. We've been looking precisely at these issues, and we'll be coming out very shortly with our proposals on this. And he's also advanced opportunity zones in the inner city, and he's pushing for school choice for inner city parents. That's to me the civil rights issue of our era, is giving these parents the wherewithal to educate their children in the best schools possible. And so he is addressing that. And I think pulling the police back from these communities would make it far more difficult for these communities to have the equal opportunity and the full participation in the American dream that they deserve.
He also went on, let me tell you, Bill Barr knows exactly how to respond to defund the police and prosecute the police. He talks about criminal justice reform that was underway long before the protest occurred. Cut number five.
There hasn't been a president recently who has been more committed. He didn't require the crisis we have today to get started with the First Step Act and with establishing a commission which has been looking at the very issues we're dealing with today. And I know there's a lot of interest among police leaders for clarity and guidance on the use of force and some of the issues you were just talking about, Sheriff. Making sure the standards are out there, making sure they are trained, and making sure they are adhered to. And we're looking forward to working with you to get that done. The time for waiting is over. It's now incumbent on us to bring good out of bad. And we can do it, and the commitment is there in law enforcement to do it, so let's get it done.
I got to tell you, if you care about police reform and if you care about justice reform, Donald Trump did that with Jared Kushner 2 years ago, if you weren't watching. Also want you to hear Bill Barr talking about the absurd rhetoric around the Lafayette Park clearance. Cut number 4.
The image has somewhat been created and miscreated in the sense that I haven't seen any videos on TV of all the violence that was happening preceding that.
You were hit or something, or something was thrown at you?
Well, I did go to the park before the actual operation to move out the perimeter, and I personally saw projectiles thrown, and 2 were thrown at me. And the police officers there and my security detail made me move back because they said that projectiles had been landing in a certain area, things like rocks. Bottle was thrown at me.
Well, that's eyewitness testimony, but you don't hear that on the news because the news has a narrative, and they want you to think Donald Trump abused the protesters. Donald Trump did talk yesterday, and he absolutely takes on the idea we're going to defund the police. He's not going to defund the police. Joe Biden, the Democrats are going to defund the police. President Trump said this yesterday, cut number 8.
This has been a very strong year for less crime. Let's put it that way, less crime. And there's a reason for less crime. That's because we have great law enforcement. I'm very proud of them. There won't be defunding. There won't be dismantling of our police. And there's not going to be any disbanding of our police. Our police have been letting us live in peace, and we want to make sure we don't have any bad actors in there. And sometimes you'll see some horrible things like we witnessed recently, but 99.9, but let's go with 99% of them are great, great people, and they've done jobs that are record-setting.
So the Democratic Party is all about attacking the police. Donald Trump is standing with the police. Indeed, he made it very explicit yesterday. Cut number 7, the president.
The police are doing an incredible job. As I said, their records are being broken in terms of lack of crime. We had a tremendous year, tremendous 12 months, tremendous 36 months, I think you can say, during the term. Then you add 6 months to that. 3.5 years, it's gone by very quickly, but we've had a tremendous record on crime. And we're going to work and we're going to talk about ideas how we can do it better and how we can do it, if possible, in a much more gentle fashion. A thing like happened should never have happened. And plenty of things shouldn't have happened. But we can't give up the finest law enforcement anywhere in the world.
It is the finest law enforcement anywhere in the world. And it does require continual vigilance and continual improvement. And that is ongoing everywhere. It does not require radical measures such as defunding the police and prosecuting the police. Cut number 6, President Trump actually telling you what happened a week ago Monday.
So it's very interesting because I just see in some of the papers they want to end the police department, quote, end the police department in Minneapolis. End it. What does that mean? End it. They abandoned their police precinct, something I've never seen before. You had a mayor that asked them to abandon, and now they've abandoned the mayor, it looks like. The opposite of far thinking. You know, you say far thinking. Is that far thinking? So I insisted on bringing in the National Guard, and all of a sudden it was like magic. It was in good shape. They helped with the police, but the police were told to leave their posts. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. But we insisted on having protection for that great city or that great state, Minnesota.
So Donald Trump, a week ago Monday, had a tough call with the governors and told them they were being weak and urged them to be strong in the enforcement of peaceful protests. Not violent protests, peaceful protests, to protect the protesters and to crack down on the looters. Then he gave a very tough speech in the Rose Garden saying he was prepared, if necessary, to use the Insurrection Act. He did not have to use it. And then he walked to Lafayette Park. In one day, he sent a message to every policeman in the United States, we've got your back. And the violence ended. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. The violence ended Monday. All right? That's all that happened. Stand with the police, and the United States gets the message. It travels at the speed of sound through social media, through the communication skills of the president, through the Twitter feed, through however. Except it doesn't get to the left. Here's Lisa Bender again, the whack job Minneapolis City Council president, on with Wolf Blitzer on CNN, cut number 17.
What happens if there's a criminal out there with a gun and starts shooting people? Who's going to respond if there's no police force?
Look, it is our top priority to keep every single member of our community safe. And if you look back at the last 150 years of our police department, it is becoming increasingly clear that that model of policing isn't working. So we need to invite in our whole community, the 9 members of the city council that came from every corner of our city to stand together to make this commitment. We don't have all the answers. And what we committed to was a community process to help reimagine public
All right,
safety.
stop for a second. This is just babble. This is just incoherent babble. I have been to Minnesota and to Minneapolis scores of times in my 20 years of broadcast. I've been at the state fair. I know a lot of Minnesota cops. Jay Larson gets pulled over by them all the time, and they're always very nice to Jay Larson. It's just nuts. I don't know how Minneapolis elected a nutty city council that made this nutty person their city council president. But the idea that after 150 years, the Minnesota Police Department has to be defunded, that's nuts. Val Deming. No, wait. I want to stay with Lisa Bender, the CNN interview streak she did. She did Wolf Blitzer. She did Chris Cuomo. She did Allison Camerata. And it's on Allison Camerata that she really opened up and laid out the radical within. This is the Democratic Party. This is Lisa Bender, Democrat, Minnesota Democrat Farm Labor Party, cut number 18.
Do you understand that the word dismantle or police free also makes some people nervous? For instance, what if in the middle of the night my home is broken into? Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean...
It's insane. The Democratic Party is insane. That comes from a place of privilege. The only person I know who lives in a place of privilege is Dwayne.